Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2017 DreamHack Austin Hearthstone Grand Prix.
It's really tempted to just pick you up and put it in his arms.
I'm joined by my two sons, Noxious, and that's Admirable.
Sleepy and bashful.
Yeah, I'm TJ's older son.
Yeah.
But older than he is.
Admirable's actually my dad. It's a weird story.
That's why he has such a great beard.
But it's the last round of Swiss, guys. We're
Yes.
going into round 9 of the Swiss portion. So we're going to have our top 16 decided after this round. It's going to be a doozy. Dog is this player sitting at 8-0. Woo! Got to beat. He's already going to be in the top 16. It's just a matter of seeding at this point and seeing who he's going to be playing against.
Yeah, I was actually talking to him a little bit before the match started, and I'm like, you know, good job going 8-0. And he's looking at me like, yeah, first one in, first one out. He's thinking, I'm gonna get the top 16, first run eliminated, and then this whole score doesn't matter at all.
Dog always has a positive attitude.
I like that about the man.
He's just real. He's looking at that glass and he's like, there's no way that's half full because I drank half of it. It is now half empty.
You know what they always say, dogs have 9 lives, so.
Yep. Every dog has a day.
Every dog has a day. But let's go ahead and take a look at the standings now that we're going into round number 9 and see where these players stack up as we go into the final round of the Swiss competition. There's Dog. Lots of players at 7-1, including Temple Storm players Justsaiyan and Reynad, who will actually be featured on stream in just a few moments. We also have Terrence M up there as the runner-up from DreamHack Austin in 2016. Shoop, who's been a long-time competitor in the North American Hearthstone scene, as well as Ryder, Mr. Lego, and Allen at that 7-1 spot. All those guys trying to make a little bit bigger of a name for themselves as we move forward here.
Yeah, this is probably the most volatile round of any of them that we've had. It is a long way tie with those 6-2s. Every one of those who wins is going to be in contention for that top 16 spot. If you're already in that top 16, you managed to pick off a win, you're finding yourself there. But if you're right on the brink, those 4 players you saw underneath, those are in the 20th spots, or the 17th through 20th spots there. Those guys, if they win, still have a good hope for it, but maybe don't quite make it there. It's going to be really close.
Yeah, and Chalky's one of those players at 6-2, looking to make another run for that title. He actually went back, took his tweet from 2016 after round 8, where he said, 6-2, winning in, let's go, or something along those lines. He replied to that tweet and said, same. So he's in the same.
He talked to himself. He's the same boat exactly as last year.
He's had almost the exact same run as well that he did from his run last year, where he won the whole thing. So maybe we'll see a repeat performance. But speaking with Reynad a little bit before this, he said he's desensitized himself to competing as a whole. So I asked him, how you feeling? And he was 7-1, which is really good. It's a really good score. And he's like, eh. He goes, well, I desensitized myself, so that way I don't care about the losses, but it also has the side effect of me not caring about my wins
at all, yeah.
So he's ready to go, I guess.
Yeah.
Gonna curse.
I mean, the thing is desensitized because we just saw in the last round, all the Temple Storm members were fighting amongst each other, and now he's up against Justsaiyan for just another team kill potentially. But one of the big things as well from all the players here, Temple Storm that are making it this deep is they're basically all guaranteed a decent tiebreaker because they've gotten so many wins against players and losses against good players who are very deep in. So at the end of the day, they might, if they make the cutoff at 7-2, still make it through.
Eloise is the one that's she's got the worst tiebreakers out of all of them. If they all, well, one of them's going to go 8-1 here because Reynad and Justsaiyan get through. These guys are almost guaranteed because of the records.
Yeah.
Trump is close to it, but he's probably going to be in if he wins. And then Eloise is the one where there's a little bit of a question mark there for her. But we could very well see 4 members of Team Temple Storm make it into the top 16, which is pretty nuts.
That would be just an astonishing performance. A lot of times you pull a team together for a competition like this and you collaborate and work on lists and lineups, and your goal is to have one of you get through to top 16. The fact that all 4 of them are in contention here is just outstanding for their team. What a big impact they've made since Journey to Angoro.
All right, well, the guys are just about ready to play, so let's get some quick predictions. Justsaiyan or Reynad, Noxious?
Well, I feel like Justsaiyan's isolating the rogue on Reynad's side based on the ban system where he banned the druid, which is something that's very uncommon, left the rogue up and seems to have 3 classes capable of aggression. So I'm going to give the edge to Justsaiyan in that realm.
Okay.
I'm going with Reynad.
Go ahead.
I practiced some Counter-Strike with him at Seat Story Cup in December, and he was pretty darn good. And the fact that he was so relaxed and cool and calm and collected, I think that was a liability to Reynad's game. Was the fact that he was so emotionally invested into it that the slightest things could peel away some of his attention. I don't think it's there anymore. And I think when Reynad's purely focused, this guy can really play the game. I'm taking Reynad in this one.
Reynad said most of his wins throughout the tournament so far have been 3-0s, including the one in the match against Trump. So, you know, you don't want to beat your boss. That's one thing.
Oh,
Job security is a real thing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna vote for Reynad, but we'll let the players decide for themselves. The final round of Swiss is about to begin, so let's get into it.
All right, let's get ready to get the Reynad versus Justsaiyan match underway. Now, one of the things that we noticed in the ban phase was that they're both playing Mage. Trump is also playing Mage. I believe Eloise is as well. I'm starting to wonder if they're not all playing the same Discover value Mage that we've seen crop up as of Ungoro.
Well, I haven't been able to catch every single game that's been on the broadcast. You know, there's a lot of talk with the players to be done, you know, asking them about their games, their experiences, things like that. But I am really curious to see if there's any differences amongst the team, because all four of these guys, and I'm sorry, 3 of these guys and a lady, they will have strong opinions about what they feel is best, why they feel it's best, you know, how certain tech cards function in matchups. And that can lead to differences within teams. You know, I've been playing card games for 21 years now, and over the course of that time, I've seen large groups of players come to widely different opinions on similar strategies. But speaking of similar strategies, it is a Quest Warrior mirror that we're having very early on. This matchup is very much about who can leverage the ability of that Sulfuras first, and then also get that little bit of luck to make sure they're hitting priority targets. This deck is just going to simply build a wall of minions along every single step of the way and make sure that their life total is not dwindling. And it comes with a lot of utility tools to help get that done, which in this matchup happened to become a liability.
Yeah, and there's also one thing I'd like to mention. You know, I spoke with Reynad a little bit about the matchup, and we were talking about, you know, what exactly gives a player the edge, because he seems to have won every single spot he was in where he got Sulfura second. And one of the realizations at the end of the day was, hey, maybe the armor count matters more than we think. And as it turns out, when you're running all the armor smiths, if you leverage those armor generators to get good whirlwinds on them, and you get maybe 1 or 2 shots Sulfurus worth of armor, you can afford to be slightly late on the Sulfurus weapon. And it seems like that's worked out for Reynad in the past.
Yeah, one of the big facets I've noticed in this matchup is that it's the player who actually has the board when you go into those Sulfuras turns that gets that extra damage, and they start chipping away at the life total. It's hard for the opposing player to force back action since they're operating with 1 minion at a time, and there's a 50% chance that they lose it every single turn. So in a lot of those spots, I've noticed that Reynad has slowed down his pace of play in those situations, and he's tried to simply get the minion on board first prior to launching that all-out aggressive assault with his Sulfuras. And so I'm curious if that's a game plan he's intentionally doing, or if he's just kind of feeling his way through it, because I know that Reynad has a strong intuition for the game, but for this tournament in particular, he's been looking very practiced as well, and that's, imagine, very tough with the kind of schedule he holds. You know, this guy owns a team and has to manage that full time. Yeah, how much time does he really have to practice Hearthstone?
Yeah, I mean, he admits to being slightly confused by the matchup. He says, I'm not even sure when I'm ahead in the Control Warrior Mirror or in the Quest Warrior Mirror match. And he's trying to sort out exactly what points you should be looking at to figure out if you're ahead or behind, whether or not your quest completion is nearing. And this is an interesting point he's bringing up, because I feel like right now we're putting a huge emphasis on the Sulfuras, but given how many times I've seen the game go the other way, based on even the player who got the weapon second ends up winning, I have to wonder if there's maybe not another element to this.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that there's a lot of things that account for it here. And so board position getting muddled down very early on. And I think that favors Reynad in this position. He's having the significant drops first. His Bloodhoof Brave's buffed. Justsaiyan right now has no actual way to respond to that. But, you know, another big factor that we haven't talked about yet is the inclusion of Battle Rage in the Tempo Storm builds. It's a card that I've seen players toy with at times, but they've been drawing a lot of cards from Battle Rage in this tournament, and I'm curious how much of an impact that's really been making in their games as well.
Yeah, I think it helps you catch up when you're looking at a draw that you need immediately, right? Generally speaking, Acolyte of Pain is good because you already pack so many Whirlwind effects that you can guarantee to get possibly 1, 2, or 3 cards in some cases. But the value of Battle Rage really lies in those board-centric battles, which in the mirror match doesn't tend to do that much since you can always rely on the Acolyte to work there. So you're looking for this in a little bit of a slower matchup, maybe against Paladin where you're both trading and your taunt minions take residual damage, then you can draw a ton of cards at once. And we've also seen Slam played by a lot of players as a card draw engine.
Yeah, just to deliver that extra 2 points of damage and dig deeper into the deck. You know, is the 2 damage worth more, or is the potential to draw extra cards worth more? Because at times this deck can really run out of gas and find itself in a stalled position. And so as we move into to Reynad's turn 6, he still has coin in his hand, so he will have access to the first Primordial Drake. I know that can be a big deal to get that card active early on because it's so vulnerable to the Sulfuros shot afterwards. It's about the maximum value you could imagine from a Sulfuros activation. And if that's the case, if Reynad gets down a line, there's not a big answer on the other side of the board. There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, and now he's looking at the clock, right? Like, I want to get Ali Armor Smith because I value the armor, but I also want to get a Squirming Tentacle because I value that quest generation as fast as possible. And so he's going to embrace the philosophy that, well, the faster you get that quest online, the better your chances of winning, which is generally true.
Took a way less valuable minion here simply for the sake of accessing Sulfuros earlier on. And something else that's interesting to note here is the order of operations for Reynad in terms of the traits. He elected to put more damage on his Ali Armorsmith and keep his Bloodhoof Brave around. And this is really smart because the one thing that Justsaiyan's struggling with right now is actually handling the amount of minions that are on board. As that time goes on, it's going to favor Reynad if he can keep a wide board position.
Yeah,
Vine Shield though, whew.
Yeah, it's one of those value plays, but I feel like this Bloodhoof Brave for Reynad has been putting in the work. I mean, he's dealt damage to the Tar Creeper earlier on. Now it's also killed another minion on the back of this.
Yeah, get 7 damage and a Divine Shield out of that Bloodhoof Brave.
Can't really complain about that. Reynad's got himself another taunt minion. 4 out of 7 for both players. They're both looking for a few more taunts. Justsaiyan technically has enough taunt minions in hand to complete the quest over the next few turns, but Reynad's got the initiative on that front. So if he's able to pick up another taunt minion for next turn and maybe get himself the quest 1 turn ahead of time, he'll see whether or not the armor generation is what wins the matchup, or if it has more to do with the Sulfuros shots.
Yeah, Curator certainly is a big turn here for Justsaiyan, just providing him extra things to do as the game pans out. You know, a lot of times, even in the midst of that Sulfuros battle, the minions are very important. Reynad's had some fairly smaller sized ones as we move through the turns, but this Primordial Drake is looking like it's going to be really big. But Sleep of the Fishes, since he drew that Direhorn Hatchling, looking like it's even a better play than that. So he gets to hang on to his coin and maybe finds a better use for it later on. But for now, he's taking the board position. He's threatening quest sooner than Justsaiyan is. And while Justsaiyan has some great counterplays, some ways to pick up cards, I'm wondering if the speed that Reynad's doing this is going to be enough. But that's a completed quest this turn.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're talking about, right? Reynad's found himself in the quote-unquote losing spot in terms of completing the quest the fastest every time I've watched him play so far, but he's always ended up winning. Because it seems like one of the biggest deciding factors for the Sulfuros' effectiveness is how often it goes only on minions or only on face. If it starts splitting halfway, where sometimes on face, sometimes on minions, then you never really get the full value. Either you kill your opponent outright by simply clocking them by having the shot go face, and then winning that way, or simply you remove their board one after the other. Both ways lead to the victory, but if you get some kind of hybridization between your shot targets, which is random, of course, then you often just fall behind.
Yeah, the big one here for Justsaiyan is it looks like he's actually going to be able to get a threat on board and activate his Sulfuros sooner.
Yeah.
Reynad is just about out of gas where that's concerned, and the pulls from Justsaiyan's hand are massive pulls at the moment for that Dirty Rat. So the fact that Reynad's going to be able to deliver some damage this turn is a huge deal. And if he lands this shot,
it's still a pretty big deal, regardless, right? The Drake is dead, the Ghoul's on the board, the weapon's still equipped, and the important part here is Justsaiyan also has the health advantage. So we were talking about how sometimes what matters is the health advantage, you can tank some shots, but in this case, that's all irrelevant, because the health advantage is on Justsaiyan, and he's also got the quest, as well as decent cards, whereas Reynad's kind of looking at a bunch of card draw, some armor generation. There's really not that much there.
Yeah, plus the Harrison Jones in hand will pull away the weapon as well. You know, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but an extra attack from a weapon is massive at times.
Can we pull the Harrison Jones is the question.
That'd be
If we do,
it'd be an awfully good one to get.
Ooh,
Wow.
All right. Well, the Reynad might still have a good shot at this.
Yeah, I mean, we have a game here now. If Reynad lands the Sulfuros shot on either one of the minions, he gets the full clear, and he's the one with a top minion on board. But Justsaiyan has Primordial Drake in hand. He's able to kill the Dirty Rat and then continue to push the damage afterwards.
Yeah, I think one of the considerations Reynad had here is how much do I want to armor up before I equip the Sulfuros? Because again, the armor count has mattered in the past, and it could matter this game, right? And so he's chose to simply not armor up and just go for the Ragnarok shot. Not a bad decision. He'll get to figure out whether or not he... Well, that's good.
It's a very much the better one of those two. And the Armor Smith behind this, buy him a little bit extra life, maybe divert the shot from Justsaiyan's hero power at this point, but it is an all-out brawl from here.
I think at this point what Reynad's trying to do is guarantee that he can generate armor from the Armor Smith. So if the shot goes face, he'll be really happy about this. If the Dirty Rat dies and the Armor Smith ends up dying at the end with the weapon, that's not too bad. You've generated 2 armor in the process, and with shield block, you're putting yourself out of range of the triple Ragnarok shot, so you're still safe from that.
Yeah.
So it's really just a matter of getting maximum armor generation. And with the Whirlwind in hand, things can go quite well for him.
Well, that's the shot Justsaiyan was looking for. So now he doesn't have to play Primordial Drake. He's free to try to get more minions on board. And remember, I talked about that early on. It's whoever's getting a better board presence is typically taking advantage of the game. And honestly, Infested Tauren looks really good for that position. The fact that that's 2 potential bodies to absorb shots from Reynad's hero power right now, that can be a big deal.
Sure, I mean, the 111 is not bad either, right? The Tar Lord, sure, you're surrendering 1 turn, but it's an 11 health minion, which tends to not die to the hero power. Yeah. So in both cases, you're soaking up 2 hits, except this one costs you 4 mana. The other one costs 7.
Well, Curator drawn, so more gas for Reynad. So again, my issue is that he's just falling behind on board. I don't know if he can really recover from this spot. I mean, he's got some time to work with, but that window is going to quickly close as we go through this game.
Oh, he's got cars in hand now. This Drake helps clean up the board.
And notice this, Reynad's actually trying to deliver damage here to Justsaiyan instead. So that shot is what Reynad's looking for when he attacks that Stonehill defender first. He wants to start pressuring the life total and hope he can put up enough things in the way so that he's connecting those shots first. And honestly, I'm curious if that's one of the big breakers that's been a part of it. We saw Justsaiyan play strictly for value on the turn previous, where Reynad, he played strictly to deal damage in this spot.
Yeah, and this is what Reynad was saying before the match started, is maybe it's just better to try to aim those shots at the face. I mean, if you have a Ragnarok shot, usually when you play it, the old Ragnarok, that is, the legendary, you're looking to kill minions with it. You want to extract value before removal happens. In this case, though, if you're not playing for board and you're playing to win the game, sometimes you have the luxury of going for the face damage instead.
That draw.
Yep, that's a draw indeed.
I don't know if it's played this turn, but this is a tough one for Reynad at this point. So one of the big benefits of the Direhorn Matriarch, which is the 6/9 you get from the hatchling later on, is that it actually lives through one of the shots of the hero power. So you have to use another resource in order to check it. Because Reynad's behind on board, his doesn't have that freedom to live through a shot at this point.
Well, he's got the benefit of the Whirlwind. He kept the coin, right? We've spoken about this, but the fact that he's got the coin here is really, really important, because if the shot, for instance, if you wanted to go for Whirlwind into Coin Drake, that's a possibility.
I'm looking at the execute in this spot.
Sure, that's good enough.
Wipes out a lot of damage on board. He gets to land his own 6/9 afterwards, and he's taken the lead in terms of damage. So 2 more shots to Justsaiyan, and Reynad's going to pull ahead of this one. But at that time, he unintentionally aimed it at face. I mean, he left the Matriarch in place prior
maybe the play change. If the play changed, what would have happened is he'd gone hero power, hits the Matriarch, then you play Drake, clean up the board. We're happy about that, right? So there's a lot of lines of play that were open depending on where the shot went.
Oh my, oh my.
That right there was exactly what Justsaiyan was looking for, and suddenly the damage output is pouring in from Justsaiyan and onto Reynad.
Notice, though, he didn't actually get another minion on board this turn. So Reynad needs 2 back-to-back shots from his hero power to win. And he can stave off the following turn with the shield block. He has now a minion to add to board to try to stave it off even further. So he's got some chances here to win this game, and that is the worst of the shots he could have gotten.
But he does get a 4/8 in the play, which granted dies to the hero power, but since you're at 9 health, you're still safe from the Ragnarok shot in the worst case scenario.
Well, he's going to go to 1 here, and then the shield block only brings him up to 6.
Yeah.
So he is going to need to fade a big shot in the following turns, and he's going to need to land 2 of his own.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems, I think. You know, I think Reynad's list only runs 1 shield block, which means that he cannot run a runner shield block to keep himself safe from the second Ragnarok shot. He's going to have to make sure he stays alive by simply going wide on the board with whatever draw he gets next. Maybe another Stonehill Defender finds himself another minion to put down.
Yeah, and Justsaiyan, he's in a similar problem, though, where he wants to get a minion down and take care of the problem on board. But if he wants to kill that and use his hero power, it means that he's not developing. If he wants to kill that and get development, it means he's not using his hero power. This is looking tricky.
Yeah, this is a conundrum that every Taunt Warrior runs into. And suddenly, Reynad still could get this, just based on the way the game's playing out.
Well, Brawl's a pretty hideous one.
Yeah.
So shield block is the first step. He's looking for anything that will stick to the board.
That's one of those. It's a target that can soak up a hit, and that is another hit to Justsaiyan.
Oh, Justsaiyan he's nervous now. He cannot deliver lethal damage with any draw next turn, I believe. 14, no, I lied to you. Fiery War Axe.
Fiery War Axe would do it, yes. It would be 1 over the lethal. But I mean, with the Tar Creeper in the way, you can still get Whirlwind with the Execute again and deliver that damage. But you are looking for Fiery War Axe. There isn't anything else, I believe, in the deck that can deal that damage. And that is going to be the card he's looking for.
Wow.
That's a lifesaver right there. Granted, he could have gone wide on the board with the Drake #2 and probably diminished the odds that he would die. But with Brawl being a thing in that deck, you can't guarantee that having 2 minions keeps you safe, as they are able to reduce the count of minions down to 1, and that second Drake might have not done the job. But in this case, it was sufficient to simply find the axe.
That was a big draw from Justsaiyan, because going into that turn, if he wanted to develop and use his hero power, he would have had a 33% chance to lose the game on the following turn. Reynad, spending deliberate time trying to focus the shots at a higher percentage towards Justsaiyan, it really started to make a difference as the turns panned out. Justsaiyan wasn't able to get the Drakes online early, and so he fell into a couple of rough turns where he's like, wow, well, I mean, I have to take some risks here. But at the end of the day, it was that infested Tauren that really made a difference. That absorbed a lot of damage for Justsaiyan in that game.
Yeah, the fact that it actually ate up a shot and then forced the Drake to come down to soak up the damage was also another big deal. Justsaiyan in the spot is going to get to replay the Quest Warrior. It's the type of deck that so far in the tournament, when it wins once, sweeps. It seems to happen all over the place. The deck just has a good matchup against a lot of things, except maybe Quest Rogue.
This is definitely one of the worst matchups, I'd say, for Quest Warrior is the Quest Rogue. It's so easy for Quest Rogue to get it online and then just start cranking out 5/5s. And one of the hardest things for Justsaiyan to actually deal with is just a wide position of 5/5s turn after turn after turn. So Reynad's main goal is to find a valuable minion to return to hand and go from there. Notice he keeps preparation because of the explosive turn potential he can have with that. And Justsaiyan actually mulligans away Fire Plume's Heart in this spot. He knows that his win condition is largely going to involve simply staving off the pressure from Reynad and actually outscaling him at some point. Primordial Drake is still a heavy-hitting card versus this deck. So if he can find himself in positions where he's able to clear boards turn after turn, Reynad can eventually run out of gas, but Novice Engineer.
There we go. We get the card draw. We get the return. We already have 3 bounces in hand, so we're good to go. All we have to do is play this out and eventually get the quest online with as many minions as we can. There's always the issue of doing that too early to where you're pulling the trigger and giving a good brawl to the opponent, but it's usually not that big an issue.
And that's why Novice Engineer is such an important facet to the game plan here. He's picking up extra gas to that card. It functions largely in the same way as a Firefly would in this matchup, but the thing is, he's finding key cards. He's finding these extra charges. He's going to dig to additional shadow steps sooner.
And it's really down to the chargers, as you mentioned, right? Like, those cards are the cards you're looking for to close out the game, as you can bounce them whenever you need to. You have the Vanish in the deck, probably, as this tends to be kind of standard, I think, in Rogue nowadays.
I've been seeing it teched in a lot more recently than I have in the early stages anyway. Just the ability to vanish, clear board, and play lots of cheap 5/5s is oftentimes a very big deal.
Yeah, and one of the things on Justsaiyan's side that he's going to have to consider is, well, multiples of 5. Minions hit you in waves of 5, so you have to be somewhere, like, there's 25 health, let's say. Being at 26 lets you die to the dagger, so you want to be at 27. Just 2 above the multiples of 5, so that the 5 attack minions, after the quest has been played, do not kill you. And the Armor Smith can help make that a reality.
Well, we're quickly approaching that quest turn. Reynad is now 1 turn off of having that, plus the preparation. And he's got extra minions in hand as well in case Dirty Rat is found from Justsaiyan. Dirty Rat's really one of the few ways you can interact with this deck and disrupt that combo. If he finds Dirty Rat and pulls Novice Engineer, that's jackpot for him. But outside of that, there is really no way for him to stop this quest.
Yeah, and the thing is, once it gets online, one of the big issues for Justsaiyan is there's not enough card draw in the deck that you can fetch the answers to everything, so you're putting taunts as a band-aid on the incoming damage, and you're hoping your brawl gets the job done, and then you can pick up some decent sleep with the fishes, with double whirlwind effects, but that's going to stave off only so many waves of 5/5s until you eventually get buried under value cards like Igneous Elemental, generating 2 5/5s, and at that point you just start losing the game.
I mean, you notice that Justsaiyan's taken the board here. He's got more pressure out, but he doesn't really have a follow-up to it. He drew back the Fire Plume's Heart. His hand is Brawl, Execute, and Whirlwind. This is a long road ahead of him to win this game, and Reynad is about to start the massive train of damage. He's going to completely shut off all the work Justsaiyan's done to this point.
Yeah, decent trade on the Bloodhoof Brave. Can play the patches here if he so chooses. Or Glacial Shard really to stop something, right? I mean, it is a 5/5 that freezes, lets you keep the tempo and play patches on the following turn, bounce it with the Youthful Brewmaster. You've got options.
Coin 5/5 sounds good to me.
Yeah, 1 mana 5/5. Anyone? Oh, this is still, you know, Justsaiyan, despite the fact that he doesn't like his spot and he knows eventually he'll get buried under value, getting double brawl, for instance, into some bigger taunts, maybe picks up a Tar Lord, you know, that tanks 2 hits plus a dagger hit.
Yeah, the issue is he's not able to actually get any pressure rolling this game. You know, he redrew Quest, but I don't really think it's the win condition he's looking for in this one. And Reynad with Mimic Pod, with Igneous Elemental, with Youthful Brewmaster, this is just about over if you're looking at a pure card advantage battle. Reynad's got so much to apply pressure with. Justsaiyan he's going to get pushed out of this game, I think.
Yeah, Igneous Elemental, we're looking at it as like, oh, it's 1 card in Reynad's hand. No, it's really 3 5/5s. And if you look at it that way, suddenly you realize his hand size is much bigger than it shows. Mimic Pod also counting as 2 cards. Reynad's got about a 3 to 4 card advantage on his opponent.
Yeah, plus he's going to be drawing extra cards if he wants to. He's got so much to work with.
And here we go. The train has begun.
Yeah, suddenly all of Justsaiyan's minions are dead.
Now Reynad's considering, all right, do I push the damage now? Can I draw more cards? What am I looking for? And I quite like this play where you're keeping the Novice for an extra card draw. Find those extra 5/5s to charge with. And Igneous Elemental, I mean, does this force a brawl?
Yes. Very much, I think. But even in the face of brawl, he's just handing Reynad back more 5/5s.
Yeah.
So the fact that these cards, you know, they go from nominal value in their normal states to this massive value post Crystal Core, it's too much for this deck to handle. It's, you know, it's not equipped to kill quite this number of minions at that stat line.
Well, Justsaiyan has the Ally Armor Smith if he wants to get himself a tiny bit more health for what it's worth. I mean, Reynad did draw a backstab, which was kind of a weak card, you know, given the fact that the quest is completed. You're looking for minions at that point. That was one less worry for him, and now Justsaiyan can put himself slightly further out of range, albeit not in a commanding position. I guess a double whirlwind turn if the 5/4s get overly damaged can help stabilize a little bit, but yeah, it's more than an uphill battle.
Yeah, not quite the minion I think Reynad would want in this spot. Glacial Shard, largely the effect is just dead at this point. And I think it's wise of him to actually keep the 5/5s super healthy. I mean, you know, Sleep with the Fishes is a real possibility from Justsaiyan. So if that was a card that's in his hand, Reynad's played around that successfully, and its value would be minimal at this point.
Yeah, there's really no reason to play any more 5/5s than you have to against a warrior, when you know the only way you're going to lose the board is if they get a good brawl, followed by a double whirlwind, Sleep with the Fishes. It's kind of unlikely that you lose if you just hold on to your resources, pace them according to what the opponent's doing. Even if they get in quest range, turn out the aggression, they have no more armor gain, go.
Yeah, I mean, he's got one additional charge in hand right now. Firefly is going to provide more of that. You know, Justsaiyan is going to need a strong sequence of draws here to get out of this, but frankly, I'm not even sure what that is right now.
I'm not even sure what that could be.
Wow. Vanish gets picked up as well.
Yeah, that's going to be good when the South Sea deckhand comes online. Patches can be brought back as well. It's the type of card you tend to need when they play big taunts, which is what Warrior does. Take them out of the way, play down your chargers, go face with all your 5/5s. And it's interesting that Vanish came up, you know, in the builds. I really, really like the inclusion of that card in the deck. The earlier versions didn't play it, but it caught on very, very quickly.
Yeah, and Justsaiyan has struggled to handle the enough pressure that Reynad has applied. You know, every single step of the way, this deck is threatening lethal to some degree via the charge damage. And so Reynad is carefully balancing that. You know, notice he's just holding on to a lot of cards in his hand. He doesn't need to play them if he's going to win from this position. Just force Justsaiyan to consume these massive resources like Brawl and get there afterwards.
Now, Justsaiyan will leave the Igneous Elemental on the board. I mean, he could execute it technically and give more 5/5s to his opponent. At least you're not taking 5 immediately, so I think that's got to be the line of play.
I have to agree with you as well. I mean, it's not a high value execute, but one way or the other, this Igneous Elemental is going to provide more value. So,
right.
You know, save the life while you can. Hope you can get out of it.
And now we're looking at 2 chargers for 10 damage. We've got the Vanish set up, so Reynad can probably play all those non-charging 5/5s, see what Justsaiyan responds with. Threaten lethal anyway.
Yep.
And then have the Vanish ready with the chargers whenever taunts come down and he needs to connect with the final lethal.
The Vanish on turn 10 is really big here in Reynad's spot. He's just able to play the 2 chargers, get through for 10, Vanish, 10 more.
Yeah.
You know, that's a 20 damage burst effect that he has set up in the face of no taunts.
And here we see the power of, I want to say Elemental Quest Rogue. I don't know if I would call it that, but Glacial Shard combined with the whole, Firefly plus Igneous package, or you're generating minions for free without needing to draw cards from your deck.
Yeah, I think this has come fairly standard in the deck at this point. It's just to run the, very powerful effects. Glacial Shard is great at isolating a single target that's threatening a lot of damage, and Firefly and Igneous Elemental just provides you more value and makes the quest easier to complete.
Now Reynad,
that wraps it up.
Yeah, we've got at least 15 damage going through.
20 more from hand. This is actually over 30 this turn that Reynad can deal.
Yeah, we're good.
Woo!
Powerful enough for you?
Yeah.
Good enough to beat a Taunt Warrior, I hear.
Very handedly at that.
Yeah, this is kind of one of the perks of Last Hero Standing, I guess, is that you can choose to counter a deck specifically by queuing into it voluntarily. Like, there's no isolating your deck in Conquest. In Last Hero Standing, you get all the choice in the world. You get to pick the deck you think is best suited to beat theirs. And Quest Rogue is awfully good at sweeping as well.
Yes, it just depends on whether or not Justsaiyan can pick up his next counter game.
Right.
That was an incredibly one-sided game where Reynad had an excellent draw, but he kept prep early on too. I've seen a lot of players mulligan preparation away when that is a key card to the explosiveness that the build can have. And it doesn't necessarily need the explosiveness in this matchup, but it certainly will lopside it in your favor if you have those bounce effects early on.
Yeah, so Justsaiyan here with the Druid and the Mage. So I said earlier I thought Justsaiyan was rolling with a more aggressive lineup, given that I thought the Warrior, the Mage, and the Druid were on the aggressive side, targeting Quest Rogue, leaving it up, but he banned Druid. So I'm not sure what Reynad's Druid deck is specifically, but the fact that Justsaiyan does not want to run up against it makes me think he's running some kind of a burn/freeze mage.
Yeah, and this has become a very popular deck and one that Justsaiyan is incredibly comfortable with over his career. He's a well-renowned freeze mage player, but it's undergone quite a change with Journey to Ungoro. You lost Ice Lance and had to find a different way to make up that damage. I haven't caught his mage build just yet. A very popular version we've been seeing is the Discover Mage, as Sato was calling it on Twitter. And it's got Babbling Books, it's got Mana Worms. It tries to get a little bit more chip damage in and fight for the board a little bit harder so that you can get to your end game more safely. That's been one of the big problems with Freeze Mage is it's still got enough damage to close, but it takes more time in order to do that. So you've been seeing it make up that defense in other spots. Yeah,
and make up the offense as well with Alexstrasza, right? It's a card that in the OTK versions, you didn't mandatorily need to close out the game, but in some cases now they feel a little bit more free to use their removal or their burn as removal and then rely on Alexstrasza late game to close out the health gap to then finish the opponents off with their spells.
Yeah, now that being said, this matchup is really tough for Reynad. A lot of times Justsaiyan has the freedom to simply wait and hold on to Frost Novas and Blizzards and just keep his board at bay. And if he's able to just stave off that big damage turn after turn after turn, eventually Alexstrasza is too much for Reynad to overcome. And, sitting behind an ice block doesn't have a way to reach through that and actually kill Justsaiyan. So that extra time he buys unlocks those extra burn spells. So his main game plan is simply to keep the board at bay for a while, to get an ice block online, and then draw enough cards that he can find that burn damage. And in this matchup, the chip damage can also be super relevant to that game plan. You don't always need Alexstrasza.
Yeah, and this is one of the power of Arcanologists as well, right? You'll have games where you just get Mana Worm, Arcanologist, they're on the board, play the Apprentice if you're playing that version of it, and then you connect for 2 damage repeatedly, and the Rogue, in this case, has no way to self-heal. It's the true as well of something like Pirate Warrior, which, even though it seemed like a great deck against decks that go for burn, because they're also being aggressive, have no way to heal. They rarely armor up, they don't have time to do it, they have to be more aggressive, and in that case, it's kind of a similar outcome. If you're able to burn the opponent's face, they have nothing to do about it.
I actually want to talk about this play from Reynad here.
Sure.
This is fairly brilliant. He's chosen to not attack the Arcanologist with his Igneous Elemental afterwards, and he takes the same amount of damage long-term by doing this. He would have taken 2 damage from the shot anyway, but this way he can ensure that his Igneous Elemental actually dies to the board position that was available. And so what that means for him is that he can start getting these bounce effects underway. If he picks up anything that can return to hand, he then has access to completing quest. And if he would have killed that Arcanologist, there's no guarantee that Justsaiyan would have actually even played a minion in that spot. So it could have left that Igneous Elemental isolated for a long time, which would potentially delay that quest. That was a great move from Reynad on that turn.
Well, now getting patches out is, this early is not something you want to do, but you're in a spot where you do need to clear. We've been in that spot before. It's in a matchup you want to make sure you use your early chargers to clean up the board with. Use your dagger as scarcely as possible to not take too much damage before the burn starts pouring out. And burn in Justsaiyan's hand there is. We've got the double Frostbolt, Fireball, Glyph into any burn piece if he wants it. So there's a good chance that Justsaiyan starts pulling the trigger on some of that damage output.
Yeah, now there is one piece missing here for Reynad. It is that final bounce spell. Again, Flame Elemental is assuredly where he's targeting that because he just has no other duplicate copies of cards in his hand. So these next couple of draws for Reynad are super important. But Justsaiyan now, he's got this loot hoarder left, and he's no more card draws. So the draws for him are also equally impactful. He's got to find ways to stave off the board pressure once quest gets active, and he also needs to dig for more burn spells.
I'm thinking right now, like if the loot hoarder connects to face, right, that's 2 more damage you're pushing. Another ice block in the hand if he wants it. It's not too bad. Blizzard can buy you an extra turn as well.
Yeah. The fact that it's a 1-cost ice block, I think, is really the big difference here.
Yeah.
Being able to play Alexstrasza and an ice block in the same turn is something that players just have really never been able to do without Emperor Thorson. So moving into a turn 10 situation, say his ice block gets popped, and then he has Alexstrasza to play afterwards. Well, now he has the liberty to protect himself and deliver that additional damage. But it looks like he's going the route of just simply trying to kill Reynad. So ice block will just simply buy him another turn.
Yeah, and this is what the burn mage does. It just puts the ice block down to stay safe. Does not even play the control game all that much with their minions if they get a chance to. There are matchups where you're okay with using your Medivh's Valet on minions, where you're okay with using your spells on minions, but this is one of those matchups where unless they're bum rushing you really, really early with an early quest completion, you can use those spells as burn sometime in the mid game and rely on your draws to finish it off. And this is precisely what the hand allows him to do.
Wow, Reynad gonna prep Vanish here, and that's actually a bounce effect for the Flame Elemental. So not only does he deny Justsaiyan the draw from Loot Hoarder immediately, he also protects the value he had on board and is now threatening to complete quest so that Doomsayer is nullified in that position. This is another strong play from Reynad with preparation. You know, players typically reserve it for Crystal Core, but if he's already got enough mana to unlock it, he gets to develop this kind of turn, suddenly Justsaiyan's in trouble.
Yeah, because the backstab as well with a 5/5 kills the Doomsayer. But that's another big deal as well, where the 2 damage is meaningful. The damage from the dagger is not sufficient, and the damage from the 5/5 alone is not enough. So you get to allocate that extra 5 damage elsewhere. Oh, it looks like Justsaiyan's about to pull the trigger on the damage. That seems like a sound game plan if you need to end this quick.
It certainly does. You know, every single point of damage is going to matter for Reynad at this point, and he's got 2 targets he needs to clear. So not only does this buy Justsaiyan a lot of life, but it also buys him some time and potentially some damage in this spot.
Yeah, Reynad probably going to have to respect the 2 damage coming in from that little 2-1 on the side of the board, as it is potentially enough when in conjunction with Fireball, Frostbolt, for instance, or double Fireball, the clock has accelerated enough with that 2-1 that you have to respect it.
Yeah, now that being said, Reynad is looking at some pop potential very soon. And Flame Strike, not a strong draw at this point, but he does have the Blizzard into Flame Strike. So that could maybe buy him the time he needs, but he's still looking at damage. Now, he's got the Frostbolt out of his hand.
Yeah.
He's gotten a Hero Power in. Next turn, he's going to Blizzard and Hero Power, and then maybe have Flame Strike and Hero Power to follow it up. He's trying to just simply extend the time so that maybe he doesn't even have to find another burn spell to end this game.
Yeah, you got to put your faith in your draws. It's basically what it comes down to with Burn Mage. Very often, you don't have the luxury of waiting too long and letting the rogue do its thing. But what is this? What could this do? Counterspell?
I mean, this provides any significant thing. It's a Cabalist Tome.
Okay, wait. We're talking about Ice Block, Counterspell in there. Those things are extremely dangerous for Justsaiyan. He's got no idea.
And Reynad doesn't even really need to apply more pressure in this spot. He's got enough to pop from hand and from board right now. He's actually free to use that Cabalist Tome and start looking for those massive defensive effects that can buy him the time.
You have to review the way the deck is built. It's like the optimal line of play you have to look at.
Well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
just plowing through the fields, dominating the opposition. So game number 4, it's match point for Justsaiyan. But you know what? Either way, the tiebreakers for the losing player are going to be strong. Like you just mentioned, they were 6-1 coming into the previous round, and they had all 4 Tempo Storm members got into that civil war where they had to play against each other. And now in this round, we're finding that same thing. If Reynad doesn't pick up this match against Justsaiyan, he's going to be sitting at 7-2 with some great tiebreakers. If Justsaiyan loses, he's in the same boat, 7-2 with great tiebreakers. So we're looking at a potential for 4 Tempo Storm players to make the top 16 cut, and we're guaranteed to see some of them there.
Yeah, so if you replace this book, this Babbling Book by Mana Worm, it looks awfully close to what Reynad was recounting earlier. He's got the Sorcerer Apprentice, he's got the Glyph, he's got a Frostbolt, the Ice Block's already picked up from the Archaeologist, of course. So Justsaiyan's hand looking very secret heavy. I'm not sure that's what you're looking for this early in the game. You'd like to draw those secrets out with Archaeologist later. And despite the fact that he's setting up, beautiful Medivh's Valets, it isn't quite as tempo heavy of a play.
That's the thing, is this is the Discover Mage, as it looks like Reynad's playing, is a very heavy hitting deck if its threats go unchecked. And the Sorcerer's Apprentice is just such a great addition to your ability to crank out threats turn after turn. So while it's unlikely that Vaporize or Ice Block are actually going to play a big role early on here, the Primordial Glyph discount can play a big role. And the second Ice Block, this is where things start to turn, is now you're looking at double Ice Block up for Reynad. If he can keep Justsaiyan under the phase of pressure and just have a couple of burn spells, that extra time he unlocks with Ice Block is almost certain to give him a big lead at this point. But he doesn't want to take it too quickly. He doesn't want to give anything away. He wants to make it look like this is a difficult decision. So as the game goes on, Justsaiyan has less information about what this card could be.
Yeah, and so one of the big things too is the time you take to discover cards tells your opponent. So sometimes if you're going to pick up a card that gives you lethal, pick it up right away. If you're going to pick up a card and the game's going to go on for another 30 minutes potentially, just make sure you slow down a little bit.
Well, now it's an
Whoa,
interesting choice. So
okay, wait.
Third Ice Block available for Reynad, but Cabal Trafficker is offering a lot of value in this matchup. It's looking like Reynad is just so far ahead of the curve at this point that he doesn't feel like the value is just anywhere on the radar. And frankly, I can't blame him for that. A third Ice Block, 3 extra turns.
Yeah, so we noticed last turn, Justsaiyan had the option of going for Ice Barrier or Medivh's or the Ice Block, and chose to simply play the Ice Block to develop the Medivh's Valet to deal with the Apprentice, as his hand otherwise doesn't deal with it until turn 5 with the Coin Blizzard. And even though he's going to be able to get the armor guaranteed had he done that a little bit earlier, in this case he can still get himself armor. Granted, Reynad is probably going to attack into him a few turns.
And these are the turns I've seen the Mage deck struggle the most, is around this turn 5 mark. It seems they have a pretty big weakness here. Oftentimes it's simply a secret and then a hero power. But coming into this turn, that Vaporize coming down is really just more of a bluff to Justsaiyan than anything else. Granted, it's very unlikely for that Vaporize to ever come into effect, but it may disrupt the way that Justsaiyan approaches the game.
Yeah.
Now he knows it's not Counterspell. He knows it's not Mana Bind. He's looking at that Acolyte of Pain and going, am I going to give Reynad extra draws if this is Mirror Entity?
Yeah, and I can't really afford giving this player who's already got the edge on me life-wise any type of card draw. That's the last thing you want to do. You're so far behind in the burn game that you can't start giving your opponent the ability to fetch those Fireballs and the Frostbolts. Now, the Black Knight is an interesting addition to Reynad's deck. It's not really a card in this matchup that's going to yield any value, but, well, I guess technically Mirror Image. Yeah, sometimes you'll find the value, but the body itself is big enough that it survives Flame Strike, if that's the thing that you're worried about. And it's going to require some attention, as it is kind of 4 damage over a few turns, and that can deal oftentimes 8 damage in the matchup. But the fact that it's included in a mage deck is the odd part, as you tend to see Black Knight elsewhere, in decks that don't have burn or removal through spells. However, it frees up those burn spells in the matchups where it matters to give Reynad something else to do. So this is a cool addition to the mage deck.
Firelance Portal right off the top as well.
Yeah, another 4/5.
A lot of pressure coming through, and once again, that Flame Strike thing is still there. So for me, the big thing that the Black Knight illustrates in this spot is just the value of having a minion on board that attacks. So, it's anytime you can threaten your opponent with damage, that is progress you can make, especially if you're in any sort of racing scenario. The fact that it's a 4/5 is a meaningful deal to him. He's looking at that to make an impact versus Taunt Warrior, but in the meantime, if you're ahead, just a 4/5. 4/5s are fine.
Yeah, and Reynad right now setting up lethals if he wants to at any point. He's got the mana to play Pyroblast. He's got his opponent on Pyroblast lethal if he goes for the Firelance Portal to face, and that's a consideration. but maybe not what he wants to do. Because again, you do pop the ice block at 10 health if you take that line of play, which can lead to some awkward follow-ups, or you simply can't pop the block afterward.
Reynad's simply trying to protect his Sorcerer's Apprentice here. You know, there's not really a significant way for him to play around Flame Strike other than just go straight for the face with the Firelands portal. But with 3 ice blocks down and pushing 4 damage this turn, he's still got a lot of time to either find another minion to get through or to just simply start hero powering Justsaiyan. With the Pyroblast in hand, he's got a threat that can deliver end game damage.
Yeah, I mean,
one worry for him right now is simply Alexstrasza.
I was going to say the healing is what you're worried about. And the thing is, Justsaiyan's also drawn a lot more cards than Reynad has. The card advantage, although not a big deal, means that Justsaiyan is that much closer to finding Alexstrasza and thus negating all the work that Reynad puts into setting up lethals. And it looks like Justsaiyan, with the Archmage and Tinnitus list, can also find himself a counter pressure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a card that often needs to be killed in the spot. And now the pressure's been stifled, but that's a fireball. So he knows he's facing down ice block.
He's got all that information, and now here's a question. Do you expect Reynad to keep pinging Justsaiyan before the Pyroblast comes out? At least down to 7 so he can fireball ping?
Well, it's a good question. I don't really know if the fireball would have been the choice for me this turn. You know, I'm looking at Justsaiyan's life total and going, if I Pyroblast him and then fireball him, he's a lot lower instead.
Yeah.
So that'll take longer to pop the block, but Reynad may be just looking for the fact that he can end the game with Pyroblast, potentially something. You know, say it's just an ice barrier that Justsaiyan's played. I believe Reynad checked for that, but
he did, yes.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit curious about the sequencing of this. You know, maybe he's just anticipating drawing more burn spells.
I think at some point you've got no choice. You've got ice blocks and nothing else. You've got to play with your hand, and your hand says, I want to buy time. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing I can do right now. Buy time and set up my burn, pick up my burn, draw it, find my card draw, Acolytes of Pain, Arcane Intellect. That is what you're going to go for. So now he's hesitating because the pinging before the Pyroblast means that Fireball ping is the lethal, you know, when he picks it up, or at least pops the mage down to 0 health. So I wouldn't mind seeing Arcane Intellect here. In fact, I'd be in favor of it before the Pyroblast comes out.
I think I like the Pyroblast.
Okay.
What's
the reasoning?
With 2 ice blocks in hand, Justsaiyan's going to have a second ice block if he's going to protect himself.
Sure.
In this way, I see what's going on now. I just mentioned that the one worry for Reynad was Alexstrasza, so he's trying to mitigate the Alexstrasza being a big impact in the spot. Is really his main goal.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
So when he pops it at 8 here, Alexstrasza is not as big of an effect, and with 2 ice blocks in hand, he's still got plenty of time to find Fireball, and then also ping Justsaiyan down. So the big lookout here is still just Alexstrasza. If Reynad doesn't see that card, I think he's got a good chance to win. Ooh, is that a... No, it's not a missequence because there's not a card that Justsaiyan really wanted to expend in that spot. So, like, keeping the Loot Hoarder around to not burn a card was actually a big deal. And I'm curious if Reynad's looking at that. You know, if Alexstrasza is really the big difference, is there ever a chance that he hero powers the Loot Hoarder, tries to burn that card?
That's the one out you actually cut out of your opponent's deck completely, and that card can be drawn anyway by Justsaiyan just pinging his own Loot Hoarder at any point. So if there's ever a spot in which you're okay with the card being drawn, it's probably right now.
Yeah, so Reynad, he didn't play this Mana Worm first. He's accounting for when he draws maybe Acolyte of Pain or a second Arcane Intellect. The Mana Worm attack is going to be completely insignificant in this game. All he's looking for is ways to continue digging through his deck and delivering those final points of damage to Justsaiyan. And he would have burned Alexstrasza.
Would he though?
I think
it would have been drawn.
Oh no, you're right. It would have been drawn. Okay, excuse me.
But he would have been very close.
I'm getting way ahead of myself. Oh my gosh.
He would have been very close to burning
Noxious,
it,
my heart was racing. I was like, oh my gosh. But that's the big difference here. I think I think that Alexstrasza may have just won Justsaiyan the game.
Yeah.
It's hard for Reynad to deliver that much extra damage when he has nothing left.
And Justsaiyan's got everything he wants in that
Goodness.
spot. Yes.
My heart, man.
You're going to be okay?
Okay, we're calm.
Somebody get the medics. Medic! But Justsaiyan with the Frost Nova here can prevent the damage from pouring in to pop the Ice Block, as the ping from Reynad is not sufficient. At this point, Reynad's looking for, I believe, another Frost Bolt perhaps to close out the Ice Block popping.
Yeah, at this point, Justsaiyan has more than enough fireballs to really get the job done at this spot. So when he's playing the Doomsayer here, all he's trying to do is prevent any follow-up damage from Reynad when he plays Alexstrasza. He needs a safe turn to play Alexstrasza, and he's going to get that.
Is that the last Ice Block in the deck that's going to be coming out here?
I believe it's Ice. Oh
Ice
my
Block,
gosh.
yeah. But we're talking about 3 Ice Blocks in hand for Reynad. 1 into play and 3 in hand.
Well, the key is going to be, does he have time to deliver that?
Yeah.
And he's got to find damage. He's got to find ways to fight off against the Alexstrasza damage here. But Justsaiyan, I think, is got some sort of read on this hand right now where it's very likely for Reynad to have extra ice blocks in hand. So the only thing he's thinking about is how does he most effectively play this? And frankly, I think it's pretty darn close to Alex Straza. He's got so many fireballs that he's playing it this way. But maybe Alex Straza on the opposite side is a concern to him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's worrying if I just go all in here, the Alex Straza comes out, and suddenly I end up not killing my opponent. I have to pop that block as soon as possible, and that is the Alex Straza Reynad can use to heal himself in a pinch, but I don't know if that's what we want to do here.
The problem with this is that if he Alex Strazas right now, Justsaiyan still has 15 bursts from hand, and he doesn't have an ice block up. So what Reynad's thinking about is, can he get Justsaiyan to expend those burn spells piece by piece and then land the Alex Straza? And so notice wisely, Justsaiyan weaved in that hero power right before he popped that block. He's trying to wear it down so that when it gets to that situation, he's free to simply use a hero power to pop it rather than having to expend his burn spells.
Yeah, you want to make sure the mage is as close to 0 as possible. So that's been very well played by Justsaiyan. The arcane missiles and the ice block, both amazing pickups. Ice block more so.
Oh yes,
than arcane missiles by a long shot.
It's not even close. And you're expending his most expensive burn spells so that he can still fit in the frost bolts, the fireballs as he sees necessary. But I think that Justsaiyan picking up that ice block is pretty close to checkmate.
Yeah, the fact that Reynad was 2 ice blocks ahead of his opponent effectively put him ahead.
Well, now
for a while.
So here's the thing: Reynad hasn't seen Alex Straza. This would be the second ice block he's seen. He's going to launch the fireball now because this is the only way he wins. Is Justsaiyan not having a defensive card. He cannot win if he doesn't pop this block here.
Yeah, and Justsaiyan's been okay with this. He's been whittling down the health of Reynad down to 0 or at least 1 as many times as he possibly can, and is going to do so again until he finally lands the kill. Primeval Glyph could give another block. For what it's worth, we've seen that happen on both sides. Lots of ice blocks in this game.
Yeah, and the thing about it is I wonder if the secret was created by Reynad or if he played a natural one. If he played a natural one, there's literally no fear of mirror entity in this spot. And so now he gets the Alex Straza plus the ice block, which is about as big as the swing is going to get. And I think that's likely to do it.
But Alex Straza can now be used on Reynad himself, right? He can use it himself since the block was not popped. So he also has the mirror, I've got Alex.
Yeah, the problem with that is that he's going to be suffering damage as that's going up. You know, the responding Alex Straza not quite as heavy hitting as the one that gets to attack first.
So here's the question: is anything from Atiash a lifesaver?
That's maybe Shimmering Tempest.
Sure, get an extra spell. You need to find. So there's no 3-cost minion I can think of. Sure.
You know, any damage he can look for is fairly sufficient at this point, but again, with down to his last ice block, down to his last points of life, down to 1.
Well, Justsaiyan's got not only the burn, but the freeze as well, so that Alex Straza is, I mean, that Medivh that is going to be paralyzed on board no matter what, if he wants it to be. Yeah, okay, a few nice cards, but at the end of the day, we're looking for more damage to make sure this game doesn't get out of control. I mean, how many ice blocks technically can Reynad get from here on out? There's almost nothing left, right?
With random effects, there's always the possibility of the infinite chain. That can happen. Weird use of the Greater Arcane Missiles here. That leaves the Medivh up to trade in the Alex.
It looks like that, and Primeval Glyph could get that Shimmering Tempest you alluded to.
Well, the problem, again, is that Reynad doesn't have an ice block down, and Justsaiyan has 15 in hand. So obviously there's no way for Reynad to know that, but, I mean, we can see if he doesn't play ice block, he's dead.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing, too. If the Glyphs gives Shimmering Tempest, and he discovers an ice block, and gets another ice block, and then he'll have a 1-mana ice block to use with Alex.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is almost certainly the correct play here for Reynad, though. Just given the way that this game has panned out. Now, he actually hasn't seen a ton of burn from Justsaiyan, so there is some justification for deviating from that as well. And I'm curious if Reynad is going to sniff that out. Like, it's so likely that Justsaiyan has drawn a bunch of burn spells by this point, and 15 from hand is very reasonable. But he's going to take the risk and say, you know what? If I live through this turn, I have a great shot at winning the game. So.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He is not wrong. If those frost bolts were at the bottom, then he's alive.
Yeah, if that fireball's at the bottom, he's alive. So I think that this was a justifiable risk here, but Justsaiyan navigates the matchup very well, finds the timely Alex Straza, and is able to pull it through 3 games to 1 over Reynad. So now he moves up to an 8-1 record, but Reynad has got great tiebreakers for this one. His loss coming to an opponent with that sort of record That's really the first tiebreaker there, how well your opponents have performed.
Right, and so in this case, all the members of Tempo Storm, aside from maybe Eloise at the bottom, perhaps of the 4 of them in terms of tie-breaking score, have a good chance of making it through the round of 16, depending on how well their current game has gone. We've seen the Reynad versus Justsaiyan matchup, but Eloise is still out there playing, and we've also got they're a team member, forget the name right now. Trump, that's right. Keep forgetting Trump's joined Tempo Storm, like, wait.
Trumpo Storm.
VLPS is not here. He hasn't made it.
Yeah, VLPS,
that's true.
He had an unfortunate exit on day 1. It's,
right.
Didn't quite live up to the performance he wanted, but Tempo Storm overall, just a fantastic showing for that team. It's tough to put up quite this winning of a record when it comes to these open events. The fact that they've worked together and have found this much success, I think, is speaking a lot for what we expect to see in the Journey to Un'Goro metagame.
Right, and Reynad apparently convinced a lot of his teammates to bring that mage deck, I believe. Like, the idea of a discover mage is something that he's been really trying out a lot. If you looked at his stream and a lot of the coverage of the deck that he's done, I think that one deck is his favorite one. And it seems like he's found a way to convince players who were reticent. Trump specifically said, I don't really know if that deck is something I want to bring, and Reynad found a way to convince him. Well, and Trump has brought it.
It's a very strong deck. I mean, Reynad's always been known for a deck builder.
Yep.
And